Today we're going to be talking in our series, Grow You. We're going to be talking about how leaders are calm in a crisis. True leaders are calm in a crisis. Now, when I say that, I'm not talking about how maybe President Bush stood on the rubble in New York City and saying, you know, the terrorists are going to hear you. And he was calm in that crisis, but I'm not talking about being calm in the face of other people's pain and agony. I'm talking about being calm when you're in pain. I'm talking about being calm when you're being injured, when you're being challenged, that you're able to be calm in a crisis, because that's truly the test of a leader. Calm in a crisis, that means, do you have self-control? We know self-control, that's an attribute of the fruit of the Spirit. It's an attribute of love, because really, love is the fruit of the Spirit. And what does love look like? Well, one of those pieces of love means self-control. Self-control. Composed, are you composed? After you jammed your toe in the edge of the dresser, in the middle of the night, are you still composed? Are you cussing in tongues? Are you cool under pressure? See, write this down. Leaders, number one, leaders, they have a high pain tolerance. What normally bothers the average person doesn't bother a true leader. What ticks off the average person, a true leader will still stay calm in the face of adversity. Why? Because they have a high pain tolerance to endure criticism and insults. They have a high pain tolerance to handle criticism and insults. See, Jesus, as the ultimate high capacity leader, he showed us how to be calm in a crisis. Now, he had a high pain tolerance because he was able to be calm in a crisis when he faced the most severe of personal injuries. We can look in John chapter 19, verse 3. It said, Pilate took Jesus and had him flogged. He had him flogged 39 lashes. That means that these men that knew how to flog people, they had the gift to be able to flog people within one lash of killing them. That's why 40 lashes would kill them. That's why they said 40 lashes less one, or 39 lashes, because the 40th lash would be the final blow. That's how close he was to death. Not only that, but you have to understand that his flesh and his bones were showing through. He was beaten to a pulp. Then the soldiers in verse 2 said, they twisted together a crown of thorns, set it on his head. When we say set it on his head, it wasn't delicately. They jammed the thorns into his skull. And then they dressed him in a purple robe. Now they're mocking him. And then they lined up and said, Hail, King of the Jews. And they took turns slapping him in the face. Hail, King of the Jews. And they beat him. Next person would come up. Hail, King of the Jews. And he stood there without reprisal, without rebuff, without commenting, without saying anything, standing there, taking it all. Why? Because he took it for you and me. If he could go through that, we can go through some things that we face. Look, you have to understand, when he was going through all of this, you have to know that he wasn't tapping into his heavenly powers. He left those in heaven when he came and took human flesh form. So all he had was everything that we have, and that is the power of the Holy Spirit to be able to live the life that Jesus lived. So he didn't pull on divinity powers, his divine powers from heaven. He stood there as a man standing in the character and the conduct of God, and he withstood it. He endured it. But I want you to know the same power that enabled him to endure it is the same power that enables you and I to endure. Secondly, leaders know how to process their anger. I didn't say leaders don't get angry. Just ask my wife. She knows I get angry sometimes. See, you have to understand that Ephesians 4:26 says, be angry and sin not. Be angry and sin. You can be angry and not sin. But what it says is be angry and sin not. So what that means is you have to process your anger properly. Other words, you will use your anger inappropriately, and you'll not only hurt yourself, you'll hurt other people. See, being angry, but you don't let it turn into sin because you're controlling your anger. You're not allowing your anger to control you. You can use anger as the strength to do the right thing just as much as you can use anger in the strength to do the wrong thing. That's why parents, you can be angry at your children. You can be angry at your kids. Anybody know what I'm talking about, being a parent? You can be angry. I don't know why, where you came from. I don't know what seed is in. Come on. You're angry, steam's coming out of your ears, but here it is. You don't discipline in anger. You don't discipline in anger. That's punishment. You don't punish your kids, you discipline your kids. And that means you process your anger. You go to your room, you take your time out, you vent, you scream in your pillow. You deal with it so that way you can handle your kids properly and restore them instead of punish them. You discipline them instead of beat them. Growing up, my dad was a holy man because he knew how to whip. He did. He used the belt. And you know, he only had to use it a few times until I figured out, I don't want that belt anymore. Don't you call CPS on my daddy. Look, Genesis 4:4 says it this way. This is talking about Cain and Abel. This is Adam and Eve's two sons. Abel presented an offering and a gift to God. That was accepted. Cain, he just, when he got around to it, he just kind of took what he had and gave it to Cain. And that wasn't accepted by God, okay? Check it out. The Lord accepted Abel and his gift, but did not accept Cain and his gift. This made Cain very angry, and he looked dejected. See, leaders can be angry, but we know how to process the anger. The problem is Cain got angry because he was being corrected. Look, it doesn't feel good when you get corrected. Anybody know what I'm talking about? We had Pastor Gerald here last week, and everybody, oh, Pastor Gerald, he's so wonderful. He is wonderful. He is wonderful, but I tell you what, I don't have him in my life to make me feel good. He's not my comfort medicine. He's my correction medicine. He'll say, hey, you shouldn't do that anymore. I've been pastor for 31 years. I've been raised. I'm a third generation pastor. I could go off like that. I could, but that's nothing but pride and arrogance. I could get into anger and allow my anger to process wrongly, but no, I just say, yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm going to submit. Why? Because every time you submit to the right thing, guess what? Blessings and something good is going to be around the corner. See, God was talking to Cain. He says, why are you so angry? Why are you so angry, Cain? Why do you look so dejected? You know what? When you're dejected and when you're ticked off and you don't get your way, what happens? Your face changes. It looks ugly. It does. It's contorted and it just sour face like you've been sucking on prunes. Come on, like you had a bad burrito the night before. Your face is contorted, you're dejected. You're pouting. Your lips sticking out. But God said this. He said, you will be accepted if you do what is right. But if you refuse to do what is right, then watch out. Sin is crouching at the door, eager to control you. But you must subdue it and master it. Yeah, you can get angry, but if you don't process it right, it's going to master you. But if you master it, there's going to be a promotion. There's going to be an opportunity right around the corner because now God can trust you with something new. See, if you lack self-restraint, not only are you going to hurt yourself, but you're going to hurt other people. And what happened to Cain? He not only hurt himself, but he killed his brother. See, if you don't understand how to process your anger, you're going to hurt people, and there's unintended consequences in that. But leaders know how to process their anger. Number 4, leaders know how to face adversity. Leaders know how to face adversity. You know, we can all do the little Holy Ghost Pentecostal dance coming out of the fiery furnace and coming out of the lion's den. You know, Daniel came out of the lion's den, but I want you to know it wasn't how he came out that determined his victory, it's how he went in. Come on. It's how he went in. They didn't have to drag him there. He wasn't screaming and crying and saying, no, please, no. He's like, no, I'm ready. Let's go. Let's go. I'm going to be victorious. It wasn't how the 3 Hebrew children came out of the fiery furnace. It's how they went into the fiery furnace. Your victory isn't determined on how you walk out with your little glory strut. Ooh, look at me. I didn't get burned. No, it's like I might get burned, but you know what? I'm going to stand for truth. I'm going to stand for righteousness. You know, we got some crazy things that are coming out of Olympia right now through the legislative sessions. Crazy things. And you know what? If we don't step up and represent the Word of God, some of you and some of us might walk into a fire. But you know what? That can't determine our actions because we know how to face adversity. Number 5, leaders know how to overlook an offense. Leaders know how to overlook an offense. You know, there's a great proverb, Proverbs 19:11. Good sense and discretion make a man slow to anger. Slow to anger, okay? And it's to his honor and glory to overlook a transgression or an offense. This is in the Amplified. Without seeking revenge or harboring resentment. I've been doing this a little while. And, you know, I've had people come up to me and say, you know, so-and-so, they left the church, da-da-da. You know what they're saying about you? And you know what I say? I say, it's okay. They're not in a good spot right now. They're not thinking clear. Don't worry about it. It's all good. Let's just pray for them right now. Why? Because it's to my glory to overlook it. It's to my benefit. Why? Because if I got to defend and if I got to say, well, you know what you know what they said. You know what that did? That just made me get down in the mud. Let's talk about this, you know, turning the other cheek. And I want to give context to it because a lot of people take this wrongly. They use this wrong. They apply it wrongly. So how many people have heard, you know, turn the other cheek? Okay. Matthew 5:38, Jesus starts and he says, you've heard the law that says punishment must match the injury, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, do not resist an evil person. If someone slaps you on the right cheek, offer the other cheek also. So my sister, Cheryl, she did that to my brother Rick because they were, you know, teenagers and you know, Cheryl was the little Miss Glory, you know, prayer warrior and stuff. And so Rick slapped her. So she goes, and he slapped the other cheek. Now, let me give you context to this, okay? Jesus is speaking of personal slights of any kind. We're talking about the slap or the smiting in the King James is the word that used. It doesn't involve literal or physical violence. You understand? It's a metaphor, okay? Even in our day, a slap in the face is kind of a metaphor that it was a slap in the face to me, what they said. That's a metaphor, okay? It's not a literal strike. Turning the other cheek does not imply pacifism. It does not mean that we place ourselves or other people in danger. Jesus' commanded to turn the other cheek is simply a command to forego retaliation for somebody that is insulting you. So let me just say this, ladies, your husband don't get to slap you on the cheek. That is not scriptural. You do not turn the other cheek and say, well, I just got to endure it because that is sin from the pit of hell and somebody needs to slap that. Anyways, we have the whole ministry for that. He was also not setting government or foreign policy. He was not throwing out the judicial system. Crimes can still be prosecuted, wars can still be waged, but followers of Christ, we don't have to defend ourselves from when somebody insults us, when somebody says something nasty on Facebook. You know, as long as somebody doesn't put any like cuss words, vulgarity on our posts, we allow them to have dissenting comments. Right now, if you're streaming live, if you're watching us live right now and you want to post something that says, I'm ugly, or this church is stupid and I don't believe it, you know, we'll just leave it. Because I'm not afraid of somebody else's comment. Unlike Facebook. Look, I've posted things and I've had people, you know, they've come across and they've just been nasty. And I ignore it. I overlook it. I don't care. Sometimes I'll even delete it because it's like, this is going down a rabbit hole we don't need to go down, okay? But look, if you have to defend your own honor, then you probably didn't have any honor to begin with. Well, I have to defend my honor. Then that's not honorable to defend yourself. You know, there's that old saying, if you go to court and you represent yourself, you're your own attorney, they say that you have a fool as an attorney. Right? He who defends himself or represents himself in court has a fool as an attorney. Look, you don't need to defend yourself. You don't need to represent yourself. I'm not talking husband and wife talking through things. That's not what I'm talking. But what I am saying is there are things that come our way, and we just need to duck. We just need to look the other way, just turn the other cheek. But let me also say this. Turning the other cheek says, you know what? I trust God so much that he's going to come in and be my defense. Number 6, leaders have to think differently. Leaders have to think differently. If a leader thinks like their followers, then they're not a leader to begin with. They're just one of the followers that suddenly has the point. They just ended up out front, okay? So leaders have to think differently than the rest. Like if you own a company, if you own a business and you have employees, you have to think differently than your employees. You can't think like an employee. You have to think like a business owner. Okay? If you own rental properties, guess what? You can't think as a renter. You have to think as a property owner that rents properties to renters. You have to think differently. You cannot think like everybody else. You have to think about the platform that God has given you, and you have to think differently than those that are following you. Let me give you an example here. In 2 Samuel 16, things aren't going too well with King David, you know. It looks like, God put him on the throne. God anointed him king because Saul turned his back on God and disobeyed God. So 2 Samuel 16:5, it says, when King David came to Bahurim, a man was a distant cousin of Saul came out cursing him. So Saul used to be king. So you have a relative of the king that is no longer king, and now David's the new king. So you have this distant cousin of Saul that came out cursing. His name was Shimei, son of Gera. He threw stones at David and David's servants. Although, look, when you're close to a leader, be prepared to duck because you're probably going to get a stone that's thrown at the leader. It's coming your way. If you're going to be close to a leader, you better be prepared to receive some oncoming debris. I've had people say, I don't want to sit on the front row with you, Pastor, because, as soon as I move up there, people look at me different. Welcome to the club. So he threw stones at David and David's servants, and although all the people and all the warriors were shielding David, Shimei cursed and said, get out, you bloodthirsty man, you worthless person. The Lord is paying you back for the blood that you spilled in the family of Saul, whom you succeeded as king. The Lord is giving the kingship to your son Absalom, because now Absalom, David's son, is after his throne. David's son is after David, okay? And so the Lord is giving the kingship to your son Absalom. Now you're in trouble because you're a bloodthirsty man. You reap what you sow, okay? Abishai, Zeru's son, asked the king, why should this dead dog curse you? your majesty. Let me go over there and tear off his head. Other translations, I want to cut his head off. Okay? You have to be careful when you're working with leadership. You can't take up an offense for your leader. If somebody insults your leader, if something like, Pastor Brooks is my pastor. If somebody insults him, I don't have to defend him. He's a man in leadership position. And guess what? He can stand on his own 2 feet. That's why he's in that position. So I don't have to take up and say, oh, don't you talk about my pastor that way. Because I know what will happen if you do. It's not because they're perfect, but it's because they're called and surrendered to the calling. But the king said, listen. The king said, you don't think like me at all. Are you hearing me? The king said to the servants, you don't think like me at all. Good thing, too, because there would be a lot of people without their heads. Right? Let him curse if the Lord has told him, curse David. Should anyone ask, why do you do that? David told Abishai and the servants, my own son, my own flesh and blood is trying to kill me. Why then shouldn't this Benjamite do this? Leave him alone. Let him curse since the Lord has told him to do it. Maybe the Lord will see my misery and turn his curse into a blessing for me today. See, God is big enough to take care of your problem. As David and his men went along the road, Shimei was walking along the hillside parallel to him, and Shimei cursed and hurled stones and threw dirt at David. Oh no, let him say it. Let him go ahead. Look, if people want to protest out here in the cul-de-sac, do you think they're going to stop protesting and cursing us and yelling at us if they don't like what we stand, if we go out and take them water? If we go out and say, is there anything we can get you? I mean, that's what Chick-fil-A does. If they come and protest Chick-fil-A, guess what they do? They say, free food, here, we'll bring it for you. Look, just because you do the right thing doesn't mean they're going to do the right thing. You just keep doing the right thing. And look, maybe sometimes the stone and the dirt that is being thrown at you is nothing more than to demonstrate the power of God that is within you. See, when you have the power of God on the inside of you and you're doing what God has told you to do, somebody's going to kick dirt in your face and throw stones at you. Guess what? You don't have to defend yourself. Those are metaphors, by the way. Okay? Metaphors. If somebody insulted you, I speak a little Spanish, not much. I'd probably be in trouble. Right? But there's probably some of you that speak a language that I don't understand. And, I've been going to Nepal for 15 years, and I guarantee you that there's been some people standing around me saying things about me that if I understood what they were saying, they probably wouldn't say it. Right? They probably said some things about me that I wouldn't like. But you know what? I didn't pay it any attention because it was in a different language. So why should I respond to it? Look, why should it be any different if somebody's insulting us in a language we do understand? Because if you're going to throw dirt, I don't understand dirt language. I don't get it. I don't know. Have you ever heard, yes, I was in the Navy. I was a commercial diver. I worked in construction. I've been around the world. I have heard it all. Okay? All right? There's not one joke I could probably hear and say, I've never heard that one. Okay? I'm serious. But what I found is I don't have to pay it any attention. And there's some people, look, some of you guys know what I'm talking about. You're on the job site, and some of these guys, they have no idea what's coming out of their mouth. And you're like, if we took out all of the curse words and all of the slang and all of that, there'd be about 3 words I'd understand out of all that. Right? So what we got to do is just pay no attention. I've had people, they're in my presence and they'll be, oh, I'm sorry, Pastor, I shouldn't have said that. I'm like, you didn't offend me. I'm not your God. I'm not your judge. I'm not your jury. So why should I take offense to it? Matter of fact, you don't even profess to be a Christian. So why should I hold you to a standard that's different than me? We have to be prepared to build our pain tolerance. We don't like what somebody says about us, build your pain tolerance. You only get to build your pain tolerance in the midst of pain. But we are creatures of comfort, especially in America. We love to be comfortable. It's too hot, it's too cold, it's taking too long, there's too much traffic, this person's driving too slow. A little faster, I could have been through that light instead of sitting here waiting. Well, I'm just talking about me. I'm not talking about what you guys are thinking. I'm just talking about me, okay? The thoughts in my head, right? But it's not until you're actually in discomfort and pain that you can grit under it and say, no, I'm going to endure this. I'm going to deal with this. I'm not going to allow this to control what I think and what I say. I'm going to endure it. Let me put it this way. Some of you have been physically injured and you've had to go to therapy. And when you go to physical therapy, not mental therapy, I'm talking physical therapy. When you go to physical therapy and you start working with a therapist, it's amazing that therapy, to me, in my mind, when I've gone to therapy, it equals pain. Anyone? It's like, no, stop. Make the bad man stop. There's a fine line, though, in determining injury pain or rehabilitation pain. Right? I've had knee surgery. And I remember the first knee surgery was the most painful. And I just remember having to do leg extensions. And I'm sitting here thinking, how this pain, this hurts, okay? And so in the midst of that, you have to trust people around you. Say, no, you're not re-injuring yourself. This is rehabilitation pain, and this is good pain because this is going to get you to a better spot. Look, when you're in discomfort, when it comes to developing your character, that's rehabilitation pain. You're rehabilitating your ability to take something greater next time and remain composed and calm. But the biggest issue, and I'm going to close with this, is your prayer life. Your prayer life. You'll know the depth of your prayer life when you experience where you're at in your pain life and how you respond and how you react. Your prayer life will build depth and strength to what used to hurt you don't hurt you anymore, because it doesn't numb you, it strengthens you to endure what you couldn't endure before. And so this is why you have to be a person of prayer. And I'm not talking about public prayers. You can always tell people that don't, and this is kind of, it's a rule, it's a general thought, okay? But people that pray long prayers in public probably don't pray in private. Probably, not all the time. But if you have that prayer life, and when I say prayer life, it's not you're just doing all the talking, you're also doing some listening. Sometimes God can't get a word in edgewise. But right? So sometimes we just need to calm and do some listening when we pray. Because prayer is communication. A lot of people think prayer is just transmission. I'm transmitting my needs. Beep, 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 beep. You know, little Morse code, here we go. No, it's two-way communication. You're talking, he's talking. Whoa, I can hear from God. Oh yeah, stay tuned, you're going to hear more. You will. Leaders have a high pain tolerance because they can be calm in a crisis. I used to commercial dive, and in high currents, we'd be, 5-6 knots in the tide changes. And for my weight, I would have a 70-pound weight belt on, 10 pounds of ankle weights, and then I'd put another 40 pounds on. I weighed at the time 130 pounds. So I had more weight on me than I weighed. So I put another 40 pounds on because we would have a hose tying us to the surface. And that was our surface supplied air. And when you're in that heavy current, that hose is like a sail, and it pushes you to the end of the hose. And that hose, suddenly when you're at the end of the hose and you're in that current, your hose is like doing this. And then you're like, I can't move, because all of that pressure of the water is on you. We're down maybe 90, 120 feet, depending. And there was times I'd try to climb the hose because that's the only way you come up. You have to climb the hose. Well, imagine your body weight and climbing 120 feet of hose. I couldn't do that. And so I'd call up and I'd say, I need help, guys. And so 3 guys would be there and they would pull. And they would pull. And I said, sometimes they'd have to slow down because you're ascending too fast. What I realize is that some of you have a weight of sin that is so deep that you cannot climb out of it. It's not about being a good person. It's not about trying to measure up. It's not about, I made it to church today. There's only one thing that will pull you out of your sin, because you know what? There's no way that you can climb out of it by yourself. You will drown in your sin today. The Bible says the wages of sin is death. And that means that everybody, when we are born, the Bible says that we are born into sin. There's no one righteous, no, not one. And that's why Jesus died for us. He didn't die for us so we can go to church. He died for us so we can go to heaven. So today, if you're not born again, I tell you what, those guys, they helped me up. I got on the boat. I took that weight off, and I was so free. I was so free. And today, you can walk out of here today so free, out of the weight that you have no idea what you're under, the weight of sin. And when Jesus forgives you of it and separates you from it, oh my goodness, your name is written in the Lamb's Book of Life, and you are forever saved in His hands. So this is what it looks like. If you want to get born again, or you want to rededicate your life to Jesus Christ, just the worship team is going to come. Bow your heads and close your eyes. Nobody else, please, nobody else move. But if you're here today and you want to rededicate your life, you want to renew that commitment or give your heart to the Lord for the very first time, I'm going to count to 3 and I'm going to challenge you to raise your hand today. I'm going to challenge you to say, yes, I want Jesus Christ as my Lord and my Savior. See, it's not just knowing the truth, it's surrendering to the truth that saves you. So I'm going to count to 3 and you get that hand up, and then we're going to pray a prayer together. So here it is. 1, 2, 3. Lift it up if that's you today. Yes, I see that hand. Anyone else? Yes, I see that hand. Oh, no, you're adjusting your hat. Okay. I'll take anybody that raises their hand. Anyone else? Anyone else? Right on. Come on, everybody. Let's pray this prayer with me. Pray this prayer with me. Heavenly Father, come into my heart. Be the Lord of my life. Forgive me of my sin. I accept your Son, Jesus, as my Lord and Savior. Live in me as I live for you. In Jesus' name. And everyone said, amen. Come on, stand.